This week on 3 Questions with Corey Kareem.
You know, the lesson was plan for today because you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. I asked about 10 closest friends to me. I'm like, yo, could you hold up the mirror to me for a moment? You know what I mean? Like, what are some areas that I can improve on in my life? How I am able to sell myself to the girl now? It's how I wish I'd be able to sell myself when it comes to films and stuff like that.
Clockwise, 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 clockwise. Never turn back. Only go clockwise. Never go back. Only go.
Now, before we get started with this beautiful conversation, please help a brother out and click on that follow button on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Enjoy the conversation. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to another episode of 3 Questions with Corey Kareem, the podcast show where we sit down with some amazing people who are doing some amazing things. And that's right, you guessed it. We ask them 3 questions, sometimes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I know. I read the comments. But rather than just talk about my guests, their wins or their successes, we tend to start the conversation around their failures, more specifically, the lessons that they learn from those individual experiences. So, with that being said, my guest today is a multifaceted artist and the visionary founder of Crossfield House Productions, and an award-winning company dedicated to bringing Black Canadian stories to life through theater and film. With over a decade in the entertainment industry, he has showcased his talents as an actor, a playwright, and a songwriter, collaborating with major labels like Sony ATV and Ludacris's DTP. And he's also been managing some of the top next artists out of the city of Toronto. Beyond the arts, he is committed to his community. He's an advocate, leading initiatives such as Iron Sharpeneth Iron, which is a support group, and teaching at Colton University, all aimed at empowering the Black community. So without further ado, none other than the Troy Crossfield. Welcome to the podcast, brother.
Hey, brother. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
You know what? I'm be honest. That was my first time reading that. So usually I get a couple of run-throughs, but today was a little bit crazy. But Troy, first of all, I know I just gave you a little bit of a lightweight intro, but for my guests, for my listeners rather, and my audience, why don't you give a little bit of an elevator pitch about who you are, what you're doing, and what you're about?
Sure. My name is Troy Crossfield, as you know. I'm a multi-hyphenate filmmaker, director, actor, songwriter. I'm actually a signed songwriter to Sony TV in the U.S. as well, too. They're my publisher. And I've worked with everybody and their mama when it comes to songwriting and stuff. But, my other side for me, I'm a father, too. Mm-hmm. And I have a production company, and I'm a playwright as well. So given the creative space, I do live a bit in the tech world as well. And I have a nonprofit called Iron Sharpeneth Iron, right, that I started off with one of my boys, Joel, 10 years ago. This will be our 10th year that we're celebrating.
Congratulations.
Thank you, man. It's a safe space for Black men for us to come together and just have talk the talks that we don't normally get to talk about. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's a safe space, vulnerable space, a space of healing, support, love. And we also have a women's space as well, too. So just a bit of a nutshell of who I am. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Well, there's so many things I want to touch on there. But so, Troy, I know this is the first time on my platform. And as I mentioned in the intro, I usually like to start the conversations around failure, mistakes, setbacks, however you want to phrase that. So with that being said, tell me about a moment in time where you faced your biggest failure, mistake, setback, however you want to phrase that. What happened? How'd you get through it? And most importantly, what did you learn from that lesson or from that experience?
Oh man,
it's a loaded question. I know. I come out the gate heavy.
Come out the gate heavy.
Yeah.
Man. biggest failure,
or one of your biggest.
Well, yeah, one of my biggest. Let me stick to the creative space because the other side is too heavy. I think one of my, I don't like to use the word failures, but like opportunity to grow was, I would say, with my production company. We started this thing off humble beginnings, and having a few business partners of mine, and we chased a dream. We wrote the plays. They were super successful, and put it on stage, selling out shows, performances, and then we went to film, and then suddenly, not suddenly, everybody went to do their own thing. You know what I mean? So we started about 2017, 2017. And then last year we all decided to do our own thing, go on our own endeavors.
Right.
Now, it wasn't a failure because in life, it was just a lot of lessons. But what I failed to do was I failed to plan for that time. I failed to plan to be like, what if something happens and the group splits up? You know what I'm saying? Like, where is that going to leave me and stuff like that? Or my business partners, you know what I mean? Like, protecting yourself, having paperwork between each other. I think it was an opportunity, you know what I'm saying? In terms of like splitting up assets and intellectual property, things of that nature, so that things are not like, left, I don't want to say in a bad place or bad position, but left for the unknown. Right. You know what I'm saying? So hindsight now, owning 100% of my company and my team is now, doing their own thing, and everybody's, moving on their own journeys in life. Just looking back, I was like, man, like, I wish that, like, as much as a creative as I was, like being able to output the work, like boom, 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 we're gonna do this play, do this film, no problem, boom, 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 that we were just as cunning on our business side. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't get that many opportunities here. We don't get that many chances, you know what I'm saying? Especially with like grants and things of that nature, like, man, like, and of course I'd always shout out my business partners and stuff like that, because like we went from nothing to like a lot really quickly. But sometimes when you get there, you think it's gonna be forever. When the lesson was plan for today, because you don't know what tomorrow's gonna bring. So be your best today in terms of like managing your business, managing creative endeavors, and I would also put that in another area as well too, of music, working with some artists, being there in the process and watching them go from 0 to 100, and not, once again, managing the business. So I would say some of the fails that I've learned was definitely not paying attention to the actual business side, and just going in with a spirit of creativity, which you can, right? But at the same time, you have to have a bit of that dog in you. You know what I'm saying? That like, yo, this is why some guys are like where they're at, because like we don't play around when it comes to contracts, play around when it comes to certain things. You know what I'm saying? So on the creative side, those are just some of the things that I've learned, lessons that I was like, man, like, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to say it's a failure, because like we did amazing stuff, but at the same time, it was definitely a lesson learned.
Right. You know what? I feel like my time, so give you some context, I wouldn't call myself necessarily a true creative, although I think I wear both hats between business and creative fairly well, but I'm around a lot of what I would call true creatives, directors, writers, so on and so forth, authors. And, there's something that you just mentioned that really resonated with me, and that's the fact that the business acumen is not really there, not because they don't have the capacity for it, just because they just almost 100% focused on the art form. And I feel like that's a common, mistake, if we can call it that a lot of creatives, when they get their first big opportunity, it's just focused on the art form, the look, the feel, the sound, what have you, but not as much attention and diligence towards, the paperwork. And I can relate, in 2018, I actually had a group podcast. It was about 4 of us, a lot of different personalities. We're trying to be like our own Breakfast Club type of thing. That was my vision in my head anyways. I had the one girl, I had 2 other guys, whatever. And it was a good vibe, but similar to my understanding of what happened with your crew is there were creative differences. And people wanted to go and pursue their individual endeavors that, rightfully so, they were actually working on before I kind of pulled people together and certain things started popping off for certain people. So I think that's like a common course that happens. But with that being said, I think I know the answer, but if you were to go back in time, is there anything that you would change about that situation?
Yeah, I would definitely pay more attention to the paper with all of us, because it's just protection and it's safety. You know what I'm saying? Especially when it comes to like intellectual property, things of that nature. Because like you go into this with blood, sweat, and tears with your friends. You know what I mean? And at the end, it wasn't even like creative differences. It was more so like, I think we've come to the end of our journey. You know what I mean? And it's time for us to all go in our different ways. And you know what I mean? Folks had some children and stuff like that. And you know what I mean? Just other directors wanted to direct and do their own thing. Like, I'm happy for everybody. You know what I mean? And I'm just so thankful that we had that time together. But definitely just, managing expectations of each other and really like, it's better that we go in with a spirit of business because we're already creatives. We already know how to do that. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, and you hear it all the time that like, you know what I mean? People not managing their stuff just becomes like, it can become a mess unnecessarily, you know? So,
No, I love that. Now there's something you touched on, which actually leads into my second question. So you seamlessly transitioned from a successful songwriting career with Sony ATV and Ludacris DTP, founding Crossfield House Productions, focusing on Black Canadian narratives. So with that all in mind, what motivated this shift? And do you believe that the Canadian entertainment industry provides adequate space for Black creatives, Black stories?
So long story short, a couple of brothers and myself, we moved to Atlanta, and we're
favorite city, by the way.
Yeah, man, I loved it out there. Living in Atlanta back and forth, working on music at the time, and the guys group that I was working on, they got signed to Def Jam and stuff, and Disturbing the Peace. So that's how we got our record deal. You know what I mean? There was a few of us working together, and then I had to come home. You know what I mean? Some unforeseeable circumstances. Good one. I was having a baby. We were having a baby girl, and me and mom decided to come home, and she really wanted to focus on school and everything. So I was like, all right, cool. So coming home and not being in Atlanta kind of was like, I didn't have FOMO, but I was trying to go back and forth often. You know what I'm saying? Let me go back to Atlanta for a month, come home and go back and forth. And then it was getting too much, you know what I'm saying? Because like, you're having a child, you're having a daughter, you know what I'm saying? So like, your family needs you to be here. So I was like, all right, cool. So I'm going to start like sending songs, do what I got to do. But when I was home, I was actually also in plays as well too, because I was acting at the time too.
Right.
And, been in some amazing stage plays from one of my bro, Darren Anthony, Secrets of Black Boy, and Sharon Nemhard, like so many other plays, like, so I was always acting, but when it came home, I was like really getting back into like the theater world and all this kind of stuff. So hindsight, after I was like, you know what? They also too were transitioning as well too. So Darren was going from theater to film and stuff like that. And like, but I was like, man, I still love theater. I want to do theater. So I'm like, you know what? Let me try writing for my first play and see what happened. So wrote my first play, got my friends together to come and act in it, play parts and roles and stuff like that. And it was called Little White Lie. And it went really well. You know what I mean? I didn't have this story where like, oh, there's only 2 people at the play. No, it sold out the first show. And then it continued to sell out. You know what I mean? So the transition from music to acting, writing, it was always there. I was just changing the narrative of the story. You know what I'm saying?
I can see
Instead
that.
of like writing songs, like, okay, let me just write a play. You know what I mean? Because like stories are still coming from here,
Right.
and from those who are around me. And then that's how CHP, Crossfield Productions, was built. Because after that, I was like, yo, we did this thing. You guys want to do it together? They're like, sure, let's do it. Let's just see how far we can go. So that's what that spawned out of. Just always being creative. Because even before, when I went to Atlanta, I was actually rapping. I was rapping, singing myself. So when I got there, you know, they signed the guys group first. And then they're like, you know, do you want to sign with them?
So it was a guy rap group?
Yeah, it was it was an R&B group.
Okay, it was an R&B
group. And then they asked me, like, you know, do you want to be part of the group? I'm like, no, those guys do their thing. I'm just going to write for them. So they knew that I had a dream as well, too. And, you know, and also Quinn was with us as well, too. She was a female rapper, singer. So we were all down there together. And then what happened was, like, you know, we just came home. You know what I'm saying? And then, yeah, Quinn and I came home because we were having a baby.
Right.
And then I was like, God, like, what am I going to do right now? Can't just stay, like, not being creative, not creating. So just switch the narrative to writing shows, you know, writing plays. And then, you know, a few years later, adding more members to the team. And, you know, we just became this machine of, like, writing the thing, making it happen, producing it. So to get to your Canadian landscape question, your vision has to start your dream with you first.
Okay.
Right? A lot of people are not able to self-produce, but it's really not that hard. You know what I mean? Like, I'll probably do a class in it one day. It's just about finding money wherever you can. You know what I'm saying? So I would say that Canada does have that because there's grants. You know, we've definitely benefited off of grants during these few years, and it's helped us to put on shows and all this great stuff. But it wasn't the only thing that we relied on. You know what I mean? We heavily relied on community and resources. So if I was able to call somebody, you know what I mean, having very big networks and friends and family, be like, yo, I need this, I need help with this, can you help with that? People would just be like, yeah. So so Canada isn't that hard, but just what's your expectations? You have to manage your expectations being here. If I want to be, well, people are like, oh, yo, Troy, you're going to be the next Tyler Perry, you're going to be the next Tyler Perry. Like, I would love that. But
is that your comp? Is that, if you were to give someone, what's your comp is Tyler Perry?
Yeah, they would say, like, I would say, like, between Tyler Perry and Issa Rae. You know what I'm saying? I like Issa because she has the music component and the film component, but Tyler has the machine, film component, and theater. So it's like all the babies in one. So we definitely have creatives here. There's just a lot of us, and there's not enough people here.
When you say not enough people, what do you mean by that?
Like, what, in Canada, we probably have the same population as LA.
Yeah, California,
you know
40 million. Got you. So that's
like,
what you mean.
Saying? So yeah, we don't have enough people here to, like, push the thing forward. But and the few that have gone through, of course, you know, the Drakes, the Biebers, the Weekends, and stuff like that. Like, I don't want to say they're few and far between. There's more happening during this time. Even the ladies are crossing over, which is amazing, into the bigger markets. But I think film, theater, those are still areas that need to be, like, broken into. You know what I'm saying? Properly. Like, we don't have, like, we have a few brothers here. Like, you know, when I think about Shamir and T-Dot Steph, but, like, they haven't, like, you know what I mean, broken through. Like, what's the guy that plays Deadpool's name again? He's Canadian.
I know what you're talking about.
He's Canadian.
I can't remember his name.
Oh my gosh.
Someone will bring it up in the comments.
I know, like, how can you not know your own? But he's literally saving Marvel in Deadpool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, like, we don't have that for our Black community yet. We don't have, like, a Tyler Perry here. We don't have, like, a Issa Rae, but, like, you know, folks like Kells, And like, you know, there's directors, Ron Diaz, and of course, like, you know, we have X and we have all these guys like, and then Sasha Henry. Like, there's people that are bubbling, but like, I feel like we're almost there. You know?
I want to touch on that. So for me, I agree with you. The disadvantage I think Canada has as a whole is not as many people to sell to, right? So not a smaller market, 1/10 of the U.S. market. But I also feel, to your point, I think you're alluding to this, that there's a lack of infrastructure. I think we win on the grant system. Whenever I talk to my U.S. counterparts, they envy our kind of grant system that we have. Like, they're like, I wish we had that. But what I will say, though, the U.S. Mentality-wise, I think because they're not so risk-averse, they're willing to take more chances, which allows for a level of speed that you just can't get here in Canada. That's just been my POV.
Yeah, no, same.
And also because there's just that infrastructure, to your point, you have the Tyler Perrys, you have the Issa Raes, you have many more that I can't even name right now. Yeah. You just got to find the right system for what you're trying to build and kind of plug into that system. I think I commented on someone else's post when they're talking about, you know, the difference of trying to do anything creative in the U.S. versus Canada. And it's like, in the U.S., in my opinion, it is more of a hustle culture, but you just have to plug into the right system. And there's so many different systems and there's so many different pathways. Whether you go to HBCU, you can plug into that, the whole fraternity sorority system. Whether you're trying to get mentored by someone like a Issa Rae or a Tyler Perry, you have many others that we're not naming right now. There's so many different avenues and options to kind of plug and play. And then plus, like I said, there's that mentality where people are like, you know what? I know this is very raw in its early stages, but I see your direction. I'll take a bet on you. I don't think, far and large, that's kind of like the Canadian spirit. I think Canadians traditionally are kind of like, wait and see, more risk averse. I'm not saying that's everybody, but I think that's just kind of been my POV here, which kind of leads me to something else. So would you tell a creative that's, let's say, for lack of better words, that's hit the ceiling here, would you tell them like it's time for you to start looking down south, crossing the border?
Absolutely. And it's what many of us had to do. You know, I wouldn't have gotten my deal if I was here chilling. And I say it, I was on this other podcast the other day, and I was like, you know, there's not a lot of movers and shakers here that can actually change people's lives. And just a fact. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I'm not like shading anybody. Yeah. But like, you know, when's the last time you seen $1 million deal come out of Canada for music or whatever? Like, and they're literally, you know what I mean? We're getting some grants and stuff like that, but like asking me to make a film off of like $10,000-$20,000, like, you know what I mean? I'm trying to like turn water into wine, and I'm not Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So respectfully, I totally, I'm with you on that. You know, the infrastructure here, the people here, and then sometimes I'm like, I'm at my ceiling, and my comrades in the game are just like, everybody's putting up their hands. Yeah. So if we're all going like, man, like this is hard. Like, it just goes to show you how hard the soil is here. Yeah. And we all know you can't grow mangoes in Canada, so what are you going to do? You know what I'm saying? You got to go to where those things are growing. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I do feel like, you know, we have the opportunity here to like really like own in on talent, be developed, be produced. Like, we have the right people, the key people to get us to a great place. I just always tell people, I'm like, you know what, you're gonna have to travel. Yeah. You know? That's why when I was managing guys, I'm like, yo, if you have any criminal records, I can't help you. Yeah. Because like you can't cross the border. Yeah. You can't go. I mean, but what I also do want to say is like, I'm not even just the US, like I want to start like thinking about like global markets. You know? UK. UK. When I think about Nollywood, you know what I mean? Like those guys make movies for way less than we have, and it's $1 billion industry. Right. Like so many of us are here, and it's like, why don't we just make some movies together, like for nothing, and just keep on making movies?
You know, to your point, thinking globally is smart. Like, so you actually might know him because it's a small world. Tristan, director.
Yes, Tristan Barracks.
Yeah.
Man,
So Tristan's my guy. I worked
too.
with him on a 1 hour feature called Wildflower, and his latest short. He's been taking that. He's in it. I think he's been in Jamaica. Did a screening there. He's about to do a screening here. I think he just told us in our chat group he's going to Barbados. He's going to South. He's going all over the globe shopping this, and I think he's like, to me, Tristan is the example of what I think creatives need to be, because Tristan's not, in my opinion, he's not just a creative, and he's great at what he does, but he's also a salesman, a really great one too. And I feel like a lot of creatives that are really talented in their art form don't want to exercise that muscle, or quite frankly, they just don't have that muscle. And I think that like limits their ability, because I can recall with Tristan when we were shopping around Wildflower. Shout out to Safia, who's the creator, and Kern, the co-creator of that. I remember when we were in Miami at American Black Film Festival, ABFF, and we got invited to some like Lionsgate like party or whatever, and there's like execs in the room. We were working the room. He was working the room equally as well as me, and that's kind of like my function, right? And to see him do that, I was like, oh, he can wear both hats. So I know he's never going to be just reliant on just the art to do itself. Because I read somewhere like film media is like 10% production, 90% like marketing, sales, right? You've seen stuff that might not necessarily be like high quality, but it's done really well just because of how it was packaged, how it was rolled out, how it was released, how it was marketed, etc.
Yeah. Shout out to my bro Tristan. Like, he's a great guy, and what you said is the key. It's important because I could even admit, for myself, amazing networker, very resourceful. I can call, like, I don't have middlemen. I have friends who are, you know what I mean, CEOs, like, you know what I mean, presidents of companies. Like, that's who I am. But when it comes to sales, Lord, that's one thing and that's one thing I got to change, mindset shift. You know what I mean? Like, I have always said, like, I hate selling. I hate it, bro, because I'm like, I don't like it. You know what I'm saying? I just like to create, but and tell these stories. But if you think about it, everything requires sales. I'm selling myself as an actor. I'm selling myself as a writer.
Yeah.
I'm going to get the no's all the time.
Yeah.
But, like, you know what I mean? I'm going to get my yeses when they're my yeses. But having that skill is something that creatives definitely need to have.
Absolutely.
Including myself. You know what I mean? Being able to walk into a room, not just be like, handshake, boom, get your number, email, because we vibe, we're cool, let's go eat, let's go have. But what's that transaction saying?
Right.
Can you shift somebody's bank? Can you shift them to be like, yeah, you know what, I believe in your project. I'm going to give you 15, 20 racks, whatever you need to make it happen. Like, let's make it happen. Yeah. That's the dog that a lot of creatives need. Yeah.
And I wish more had it. And I think, to your point, it is uncomfortable. And for me, I wouldn't even necessarily call myself a true salesman because I couldn't sell vacuum cleaners well. I'm not going to say I can sell sand to a beach or ice to an Eskimo. That's not me. I think for me, the caveat is I got to love and really believe in the product. That's the tipper for me, and what that determines how well, or my effectiveness and my ability to sell something is, do I have belief in the product, right? Do I think it's going to make an impact? What's my stake in it? Those are the things that allow me to kind of go into the rooms comfortably, and no matter what someone's title or bankroll is, I could, approach them. So I did want to touch on your initiative, Iron Sharpeneth Irons, which is actually my favorite Proverbs 27:17. That's my favorite one. And I think when I met you, I did mention that to you. Yeah. So you create spaces for Black men to connect and grow. In your experience, what are the most pressing challenges Black men face today, and how does your work aim to address those issues, those challenges?
Man, it's in all arenas, especially when it comes to relationships, financial barriers, marriages, parenting, lack thereof, Because a lot of men are dealing with childhood traumas that we've never had to face before. This is the first time in our era we're even talking about this stuff. Like after the pandemic, everything just boom became like, yo, there's something emotionally wrong with a lot of us brothers, and we're not dealing with it. You know what I mean? Even though I did start this thing 10 years ago, it was like, we don't talk about this stuff. When's the last time you called a brother and be like, yo, how's your mental health doing?
Right.
And want to know the real answer. Everybody's like, yeah, bro, I'm good. But if I call you like, yo, how's your heart, bro? Like, we're in this era now where like a lot of us men have to turn around and be accountable for some stuff. Really look within. And, you know, even this past weekend, I asked about like, you know, 10 closest friends to me. I'm like, yo, could you hold up the mirror to me for a moment? You know what I mean? Like, what are some areas that I can improve on in my life? Because, like, some days I'm still struggling. And I'm like, yo, like, nobody knows you better than sometimes the person that's on the outside. You know what I'm saying? And it was really hard. So it's kind of what we're doing. Iron sharpens iron. We're not just holding up a mirror, but we're like, but we're there to encourage each other.
I like that. Quick, hold on, pause on that note. You made me think of something. I don't want to lose it because my memory be kind of shaky these days.
Write it down.
So the holding up the mirror thing with your friends, you know, you ask your 5 closest people to hold up a mirror to you. I know for me, I think my guys would tell him, man, you love to debate too much. I just love to get on my debate tip. I know that's one that came to mind. And what some of the things you just described there made me just think about, I might be butchering this, so forgive me, people. There's something called I think it's called the Johari window. And it says everyone, I'm paraphrasing here, everyone has 4 cells. So there's the version of Troy. There's things about Troy that only Troy knows, that no one else knows, right? Then there's things that Troy knows about himself that other people know as well. So that's one half of the window. The other side is there's things that Troy doesn't know, but his friends or people around him know. There's things that they can see about you that you can't see about yourself. And then there's things that you haven't discovered yet and that other people haven't discovered yet about you. That's the second half. And that's where like therapy comes in, these type of your men's group comes in, the discover mode where you like, oh, I didn't even know that I was dealing with this. And, you know, that triggered a thought in a very positive manner because I had this talk with my guy group. He said, you know, back in the day in high school, I'm a millennial, just hit 40. And there are a lot of guys who I grew up with in high school that were, you know, we called them crazy. They were wild childs, running rampant, doing all types of crazy stuff. And now that we look back at it and we have the language, you're like, oh no, he had what does Kanye have? Why am I forgetting? ADHD, or he was bipolar. But we never really had the language like that. It wasn't common to use those words. So these people, these kids, because we were teenagers, they just got labeled as X, bad, for lack of better words or expression. But really, they were dealing with something that wasn't really popularized at the moment or wasn't known.
Exactly. There's a lot of, even right now, a lot of us are undiagnosed, running the streets how it is. Like, and I always have this, well, I don't want to say debate, but if we look at something, you know what, this might even cause a friend. Let me be careful because it might cause a frenzy on whatever platform you put this on. But if we look at the variant of cheating, and it's destroyed many homes, right? And it's something, especially for Jamaican man, whatever. Fathers are doing it, fathers are doing it, fathers are doing it. But when you look at the core of it, it comes down to self-regulation, discipline. But imagine if we were to study that. Why? You know what I'm saying? Why? Because if you think about it, that is the same situation. What's in there is the same thing that's in why a lot of black men are in jail. The prefrontal cortex, not being able to control that mindset, that thing. It's just like the emotional regulation is not there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, what if we studied that? You know what I mean? I'm not saying like it's gonna be an antidote for like, you know what I mean, for that kind of stuff, but the same thing that can make a guy go get so angry, it's the same thing there that can make a guy be like, yo, I want this woman outside of my relationship, and like, you know what I mean? Because like a lot of you'll hear the stories all the time. You know, guys will cheat, and it's not because like their heart's there, just because it's
available.
It's available to them. But why is it so available? You know what I'm saying? Why is it that thing okay, or just like you can't control that thing? Is a reason why a lot of guys can't control fights, or like, you know what I mean, think that because they just go off. So when I think about like ADHD, we could talk about Kanye for years, and bipolarism and stuff like that. I was just giving an example of like, there's so many of us that are just walking around undiagnosed, and like healing does have to come from within. Healing has to come from accountability. But if we're not even shown that, how are we gonna know that? How are we gonna be dealing with that? Like, I didn't grow up with my father. You know what I mean? I grew up with my uncles. Some of them were players, whatever. And it's like, you know, I'm not saying that like my choices weren't my choices. But I'm saying with iron sharpens iron and the men that I have in my life now, I probably would have made better choices.
Absolutely. 1000%. And similar story to you, you know, single parent household. And I don't even like to lead with that, just because it's become so prevalent and people just have that expectation of you. And I don't want anybody to make any sob stories for me, because it wasn't really that. But to your point, I think, you know, yes, your choices are your choices, but I think if I could at least think about myself, when you have enough examples, you have something to compare to. So when you have bad examples, it becomes norm, right? So you think, okay, well, yeah, I know this is wrong, but it's not that bad, because 70% of the people I know have done it, doing it, right? So you have this like negotiation that's happening in your head. Well, I know it's messed up, but like, you know, I've seen people move on. They lived. It wasn't so bad. So you are better rationalizing it because you've seen it, you know, at scale happen in your own life, and you've seen people move on. Versus if you had another example, you'd probably be a lot less likely to do that. So I definitely get that as well.
Yeah, because, you know, we label things all the time like, oh, it's not that big of a problem.
Yeah.
Like, but to somebody it is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like, I don't know. It's just interesting. So Iron Sharpens Iron came out of a place of me also needing a brotherhood. You know what I'm saying? Like, not having any brothers, group of 5 sisters. So my household was like full of women and stuff like that. And, you know, my mom tried to do her best, providing male guidance or providing males that I just wasn't really connecting with a lot of them. You know what I'm saying? So Iron Sharpens Iron came out of a place of need. And now it's become a safe place for so many men. And like, you know, we've helped save marriages. We've helped change brothers' minds. Like, we've helped brothers dealing with suicide and depression. And like, you know, I'm an unregistered therapist, but it's group therapy. You know what I mean? Because each one can teach one, and each one can sharpen one another. And this is something that we used to do like eons ago. Tribes, you know what I mean? The leaders, the men come together and, you know what I mean? Like, and talk. But like, we just lost that. You know what I mean? We lost that. So I'm just really hoping that we can get back to our village. Like, whatever, it's gonna be a newer form, but like, that's what my hope is with it, you know?
No, I love that, man. I have, you know, I have a men's group. It's not an organization. It's just literally me and 3 of my good guy friends. We get together once a month, and it's primarily based around our like business objectives, goals, initiatives, and endeavors and stuff like that. But we do work in the personal stuff as well. And I could say for, you know, we've been doing this for almost 2 years. And I say for me, it's been a game changer in terms of just the accountability. That's been the biggest part. Like, I'm a great self-starter, but when your guys are getting around you, I have one guy in the group, he's building vacation homes in Ghana. That just fires me up. You know, he's not competing. We're not competing, but like hearing him say like, you know, I remember our first meeting, it was like an unofficial one. And he's like, Corey, your skill set in a different area is you'd be good at raising money. Like, millions of dollars, 7 figures. It's the same skill set. It's just you're just in a different field. And I've never thought about what I do like that because I work in advertising. I pitch and present for a living, and that kind of just opened up my mind in terms of the things I'm capable of doing. And I think, you know, to your point, just being around men and getting different perspectives about how they go about things has really helped to ground me and kind of shape me. And it's really accelerated my growth in the last 2 years and the things I've done. And I always say, like, one of the things I'm jealous about women in our community is they're so naturally such a tribe. They're so good at...
They're good builders.
They're good builders. They're such good community builders. And I feel like men in general, but black men in particular, we struggle in that area. And I think there's just like this stigma around, you know, this might be a little bit outdated, being too, you know, there was a thing about being too cool to do certain things, to talk. You know what I mean? And now we're getting to a space where, like, no, it's okay. You see, like, Wallow and Gilly and those guys have their vulnerable moments on camera, and I have a big respect because they're moving and really shifting the culture and making it like okay. And you think about how ridiculous that sounds. Like, we're now just getting to a point where it's say, hey man, I actually cried about that thing that happened.
Yeah.
You know, 15 years ago, people be like, you know, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, no, it's true, man. Even when my sister died,
yeah,
I didn't cry at her funeral. You know, it took me years later to like process it.
Yeah.
And then just started bawling.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere. See, like, because we manage grief different. Because we were told not cry, men shouldn't cry.
Yeah.
But now when I see my son have an emotional moment, I'm like, yo, how is it making you feel? It's okay to cry.
Yeah.
Like, the whole rewiring of that is just crazy to me. Because, like, when you're being told all your life, like, man shouldn't cry, man nothing cry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or you want something to cry for, like, versus now I'm like, I need to teach my children to have emotional regulation. So when it comes to things like we can't, you know what I mean? We're talking about like prefrontal cortex, all the kind of stuff, like your emotional control, like it's how you're taught, man.
100%.
You know what I mean? And one thing that you said that's really important as well too is because of our upbringing. If you grow up around a few bad apples, like, I'm sorry, like, you know what I mean? More than likely, you're going to have some holes in yours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some worms in yours, might be bruised up on the side.
Yeah.
But that's why it's important. Because they do say, like, you know, let me show me who your 5 friends are and I'll tell you who you are.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's what's important as well too, man.
Right. I love that. And I think one thing that I'll touch on really quick is the self-regulation part. So huge. You know, one time I had this kind of like this random thought one day when I was thinking about how many brothers do you think in our community, you know, lost their lives, whether they're incarcerated or, you know, unfortunately 6 feet under because of a snap decision because someone might have said something disrespectful, man, or stepped on their shoes or spilled a drink on their shirt, and it kind of escalated into something way bigger. And what I find interesting about those moments is, like, we all say, like, family is important to us, you know, family is everything, but we're willing to risk all of that in those kind of micro moments in our lives and not really thinking about it in that moment. And so I thought to myself one day randomly, like, how many lives do you think could have been saved if more of us had that self-regulation? Be like, you know what? My bad. It's not even that serious.
Bro, and this is what I'm talking about. When it comes to, like, all areas in our lives. You know what I mean? Not just the anger part, but the home part, how we treat our women, how we treat our children, how, you know what I mean, how we treat ourselves. Like, the self-regulation part, like, man, I feel like writing a film about a guy who takes a pill to have self-regulation. That'd be so dope. You know what I'm saying? Like, because you can literally see change people's lives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you could take a pill to change your life and have more self-regulation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's another thing as well too, in our community, is that we look down on help.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
when I was going through a lot in my personal life, I had to go see a doctor. Cause like, yo, I'm feeling the lows. Like, I don't know what this is, but this feels really dark. You know what I'm saying? You know, I'm not afraid to share that, like, you know, having suicidal thoughts and all kind of stuff is really like, really got into my mind where like, but it got so low I had to go to the doctor and get on medication for a while.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And a lot of people even look at that like, oh, medication? You need medication, just go to church, whatever. I was going to church every single Sunday.
Yeah.
And not even just Sundays, like talking to God all the time, but like it's just the lows got too low.
Right.
And like people don't understand, like there's help out there, there's resources.
Right.
And I'm not even preaching to be like, oh, go on medication. I'm not even saying that at all. But I'm like, there's so many of us just not doing anything.
Right.
Not going to therapy, not going to help, not talking to people. So people will snap. When we think about when we were kids, and I don't know how your experience was, you know how many times my mom came home from work, tired from work, and the annoyance in her probably just wanted to like beat everybody.
Right.
Put their hands on us because like the emotional regulation wasn't there.
Right.
They were just tired. You know what I mean? So many people are just tired, you know? So it's just like definitely group therapy, support groups, talking about the thing. Like those things are needed in our community, man.
Yeah, man, I agree with you. And you just, you know, contextualizing that moment with your mom coming home, it put the same, I just thought about my mom coming home when I was a kid. And you just, to your point, I think there's a lot of people in the community that are underdeveloped emotionally, and that has limited their growth in many different areas. But yeah, I could talk for hours about that topic. So try to wrap this up. Throughout your life thus far, what do you think has been the best lesson you believe that you've learned so far?
I do speak about this often. But I'll share here. So growing up, because I didn't have a father, I knew that whole placement was in me. Like, I'm missing something. And I've always wanted to be a good father. Even from when I was like 16, I was like writing down, I'm going to name my son Khalil. He's going to be Superman. Like, because like not having a father in your life, I was angry. You know what I'm saying? My mom got remarried to my stepfather. He was an amazing man. I was so angry I couldn't even accept him as mine. Right. You know what I mean? And also because of the things that my father did to our family as well. So I became a great father. Like, you know what I mean? Mom will say like, yo, Troy's a great father. But a lesson in life was what I didn't see. I didn't see any marriages. So I knew I was missing my father. And I wanted to become a great father, but I didn't know what becoming a great husband would be like. And a lesson in my life was like, look at the family dynamic all the way around, not just one part, but every part. And maybe we'll talk about that one day. But a lesson for me was, and somebody said this to me the other day, don't just strive to be a good father. Don't just strive to be a good father because that's what you're missing. Strive to be the best father that your child needs. And also strive to be the best husband, the best partner. Right. You know what I'm saying? Because like family dynamics will shift all the time. But like, give them what they need. They can be their best version. So now I get an opportunity to be like, okay, son, you've had a best father. You've had a great father. You don't have to worry about that. Yeah. So now my thing is gonna be, how can I make sure you're a great husband? Right. How can I make sure you're the best version of yourself? You know what I mean? So that you can give your children what they need. You can give your family what they need. You know what I mean? Instead of trying to become something that you didn't have. Man,
I love that. And you know what? You talking about the fathers. I actually just reconnected with my dad this year. We've had an estranged, relationship. And it actually, I have to shout out one of my homegirls. I'm not really on Facebook. I have a page, but it's pretty much deactivated as far as I'm concerned. And a couple of years ago, I just kind of had this thought, like I was going to the UK for work, or I was coming off of a trip in Europe for work, and I decided to spend 2 days in London, and I knew that he lives out there, and I was trying to, get a hold of him, and I had this email, and I got a bounce back, and the only one that was trying to make that work was my grandfather, but he had passed away, so no one else had any kind of form of communication with him. But I knew he had a Facebook account, so I asked my homegirl, I was like, hey, can you shoot him a message? And literally, Troy, 2 years later, this guy responds because it was in his like instant messenger, and I guess people don't check that or whatever.
Wow.
And that was literally like 3 months ago.
Oh my God.
And then she calls me up and like, yo, your dad just responded to me. And he's like, yo, here's his number. He's gonna, or give him. I was like, give him my number. He calls me, WhatsApp, have a conversation. Now we communicate every week. I knew I had a half brother and half sister I never met. I finally saw their pictures. I know how old they are. I learned their names. And it's like, I'm like, we communicate like every week. And then speaking to him on the phone, I realized sometimes I say to my mom, I'm like, am I really your son? Because we're like almost so different.
Yeah.
But speaking to my dad, I was like, I get a lot from this guy. Like, we were talking about this. We're talking about investment property. He's like, yeah, I got one here. And I was like, so I'm like, it's like it's almost like I'm rediscovering myself through building a relationship with this man. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm finally at this place. Like, for me, I never had any bitter feelings or ill will towards my dad. You know what I mean? Now I'm just at this stage where I'm just out of curiosity. I want to know this person, and I want to also know my half brother and half sister, because I grew up as an only child. It was just me and my mom. And so I want to, be a part of their lives if they want me in there, of course.
That's amazing.
But like, now I have a real motivation to go back to London and kind of experience that, because they live just outside of Brixton. So I'm looking forward to that experience, man.
Oh, man. That's beautiful, bro.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, man.
Now, fun part real quick.
Yes, sir.
So this is actually the 3 questions part. So actually, there's a couple of things that you hit on today that made me come up with this game. So while I turned 40 this past summer, I was in the middle of the jungle in Costa Rica, and I got this random thought, and it said, no one will talk you into or out of more things than yourself. So it made me realize that a lot of people, when we're talking about self-regulation, we struggle with self-talk. And if your self-talk, if you don't know how to have constructive, positive conversations with yourself, you can cheat yourself out of opportunities. I know this because I've done this. Whether you're sitting in a boardroom and you have the answer to a problem, but you're too afraid or shy to say it, and then you hear somebody else say it, and they're like, oh my God, that's beautiful, it's amazing, let's do it. Or whether it's a beautiful young lady you see, and that could potentially be your wife, your fiance, your lover, and you talk yourself out of it. You're like, oh, no, I can't, whatever. So I came up with this card game, 3 questions named after the podcast, to help you to improve your self-talk, because I feel like it's such an instrumental activity in your life. So what I want you to do, Troy, I want you to pull 1 or 2 cards from this deck here and answer the questions to your best of your ability.
This one?
Yeah.
Let me choose this one. All right. What do I love to do? Oh, man. I love being with my kids, being with my family. They drive me, you know what I'm saying, crazy, but they also drive. Sorry.
No worries.
Not a smoker's cough, don't worry. They drive me to my joy, to my happy place, to my peaceful place. And to get away from it all, like, one thing that I like to do is play ball. You know what I'm saying? Like, weekly, I'm in my 40s as well too, so it's not my 16-year-old dunking game now, but that's something that I generally enjoy doing.
Yeah.
So hanging out with my family then, because like creative, it used to be my amazing thing, and I still love it, but it's more of a job now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now it's just like, how can I create to provide? You know? So it's interesting, because the other day I'm like, you know what? I love this thing. I'm just gonna write some stuff and just put it out there, but I still love it. But it's just different now. You know?
Yeah.
Because I'm working in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
love that.
Next question. What is one attribute you wish you had, and what's stopping you from developing it? Sales. You know what I mean? We talked about that earlier. And just being that. How I'm actually, I might get in trouble for this one. How I am able to sell myself to the gal them. It's how I wish I'd be able to sell myself when it comes to films and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, you put on this persona, you go on TikTok, I'm just like, boom, boom, and all the girls are just going whatever crazy. I'm like, that's what I want to do with my films, man.
Yeah.
And I think what stopped me from developing that skill is that, like you said earlier, I'm using my skill in the wrong area.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I should be using it in my field.
Yeah.
And courting people to invest in me.
I'll say this.
What I mean?
I'll tweak your words a little bit. I say you already have the skills. Maybe they just need to be cultivated a little bit, and they're transferable because you're already a people person. And to your point, you said this earlier, you're already selling yourself, but you do more of a soft sell, or we call that being consultative, because we're always selling ourselves, whether we want to think about it or not. And I think it does have a bad connotation, sales. You think of the used car salesman trying to push you to buy something, or maybe a pushy real estate agent or whatever it is.
A phone agent. I was like, I hate that.
So I get why people have that, but literally, it's, if you look at like the true definition of sales, it's kind of like, I'm paraphrasing here, but it's the ability to inspire another person into action, right? It's a transfer of energy. That's all that you're doing. You're inspiring someone to take an action, a next step. So when you break it down and change your connotation, you find out you probably don't dislike sales as much as you think about if you kind of reframe it. If that makes sense to you.
I have no choice. I have to love sales now. I got 2 kids. My daughter's expensive. She's turning 14, and she's like, she's like about that life. Yeah.
I love that. So I got one for you. I'm gonna pull out here.
Okay.
What is a quote or a mantra that you currently live by?
If you want to go far, go alone. If you want to go farther, go together. So yeah, it's iron sharpens iron is to me.
Love that.
Going farther together, man.
I love that. Well, Troy, so for the people that are hearing this, watching this, however they're consuming this, and they want to connect with you, they want to collaborate with you, what's the best way for them to do so? Instagram
at Troy Crossfield. TikTok is my make-believe world, where I just go have fun. And LinkedIn. LinkedIn's where the money's at, bro.
It is. That's true.
I just like realized, I'm like, yo, like I'm sleeping on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Bro, I'll be so mad at myself. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm gonna tell you 1 second story, not 30-second story.
Yeah.
I went on LinkedIn after like a couple months. There's somebody that reached out to me from like a Black mental health thing. They're like, oh, want to know if we can pay you like $40K to do a film for us. Bro, I missed that opportunity because I ain't checked my LinkedIn.
Wow.
LinkedIn is where the money is at.
Absolutely.
Forget every other platform.
Yeah.
Like LinkedIn, that's where the selling comes in. So yeah, maybe I should use that as my fail story at the beginning.
Could be next time. But yeah, LinkedIn is definitely where the money at. I think Instagram, TikTok is where you get the reach. But LinkedIn is where you get the true conversions.
You get to sell.
Yeah.
So yeah. Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and yeah, those are the places that y'all can find me. And CrossfieldHouseProductions.com.
Perfect. Well, guys, this concludes this episode of 3 Questions with Corey Kareem. So for all my listeners, you know that I typically like to end with this. Sometimes you don't need to learn anything new. You just need to hear that somebody else went through it too. So with that being said, Troy and myself are out. Peace and love. Until the next time. Peace and love.
Clockwise, 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 clockwise. Never turn back. Only go clockwise.